Hi, my name is Aaron Hai, and I'm from Whitney High School in Cerritos, California, and I recently found out that I was accepted to Harvard College. PACP has been a help in my high school career for the last 4 years, and I've been taking their ACT classes, which helped me score 35. I found out that the teachers here are the most outstanding teachers possible, as well as the most genuine counselors ever. Miss Kelly has also been a second mother in my life. She's been helping me ever since I started attending here. And without them, I know that I could never achieve my dream of getting into Harvard College.
Everyone, parents and students, welcome to join our PA College Prep webinar. Today, we would like to share with you how to prepare for the most outstanding college application essays. Today, I saw the sign-up list. We have many juniors, incoming junior and the incoming seniors. This will be the most important summer for the incoming seniors because you will have to prepare for the college applications. You've been trying very hard to get to be a good student, to maintain high GPA, and to get good SAT or ACT scores, and participate in many activities. But how can you present all of this to colleges? You know, for UC, I attended a college conference for the college counselors, and somebody asked the UC admission officer directors, how much time do you spend on each application? And I remember after the discussion, they say, well, it's about 8 minutes. So you try so hard, and the college admission officers only give you about 8 minutes to review your application. So it is very, very important that you have to present the best of you, the best portfolio about you, so the college can see what kind of students you are. And of course, a lot of students now think SAT is not important anymore. Let me tell you, it is not true. Recently, we received a lot of phone calls from parents because they thought it was not important to prepare for SAT. And then when they ask around, wow, their kids' friends already got the SAT or ACT score, so they become a little bit panicked. So now they decide, okay, this summer they still need to work on the SAT. So it is true. Now it is time to look back on your portfolio or on your profile. What area you still need to work on? You have to use this summer before the college application to make yourself a stronger applicant. If you don't have a good SAT or ACT score, you need to get one, get higher. If you don't, if you are a senior, you need to start to working on your essays. Okay, so essay is the only thing that you can tell the colleges what kind of persons you are, what kind of character you are. So it's very, very important. So today, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Kelly Chu. I am the founder and director of PA College Prep. I'm also the founder and the CEO of a private school, Pacific Academy in Irvine, and another campus in Encinitas, North County of San Diego. So I've been a college counselor for 21 years, and I help many students to get into their dream colleges. So today, the speaker is our senior college counselor, Dr. Margaret Mahardo. Margaret has a PhD in literature from UC San Diego, and she taught at high school, college level at UC Berkeley and UC San Diego. And she's been our counselor for many, many years now. So she helped many students get into their dream schools, including Harvard, Princeton, Columbia, Juilliard, you name a few. So Margaret is really, really sharp, and she knows how to help the student to brainstorm, to get to present the best about themselves. So today, Margaret would like to share with you, how to prepare for the UC essay. Okay, so I will just that Margaret take the lead. Hello, Margaret.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. So the title of our webinar is How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Write My UC Personal Insight Questions. And I really want to thank Ms. Kelly Chu for giving us this opportunity to talk to you today. And so again, my name is Dr. Margaret Fajardo, and I've been a senior college counselor at PA College Prep for a while. And writing is one of the experiences that I really enjoy working with students on. So let's just go through an outline of what you can expect from today's webinar. So we'll have an overview of the UC Personal Insight questions. We'll look through each individual question. I'll give you some writing tips, and then we'll have a Q&A session. So looking through the personal insight questions, as many of you already know, this is part of your entire application for the UCs. There are 8 questions to choose from. You need to respond to 4, and you have a maximum of 350 words for each question. So given that there are some changes regarding the SAT and ACT and how students are going to be able to turn those in, the responses to your personal insight questions are going to carry a lot more weight. So given that you do have the summer to strategize how you want to submit your file, you can definitely take a lot of time in trying to strengthen how you want to present yourself for the UCs. So let's remember that the purpose of these questions is that the admissions officers really want to know the real you. They want you to be able to go beyond your classes and your grades. So you want to treat these questions like an interview in a way that you would be able to share some things about you that they would never see on a resume, for example. You'll have the opportunity to provide details of your growth, and you want to be able to focus on the last 3 years. So let's take a look at the individual questions. So the first question says, describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. So traditionally, a lot of people would think that you need to have had some official position like being president or secretary or something like that. You don't necessarily have to have had those kinds of positions to choose this question. What you really need to do is think about one of these 3 aspects, which is how have you positively influenced others, how you've helped resolve disputes, and how you contributed to group efforts over time. So this can seem like an overwhelming question because you want to answer every single one, but you just really want to choose one individually, okay? So positively influencing others would be an experience like you've mentored somebody really looked up to you, help resolve disputes. Let's say even in your family, you can talk about how you're the go-to person if like your mom is arguing with your sister or something like that. So that's something that you can talk about. Contributing to group efforts over time, let's say as part of the club, you really love getting snacks or like assisting people with making sure that the meeting goes really well. So you don't have to have these really big positions. It's the fact that you are being proactive and you want to make sure that everybody meets their common goal. So the next question reads, question 2 says, every person has a creative side and it can be expressed in many ways. Problem solving, original innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. So in this case, you can also choose one area of what we're thinking about in terms of creativity. So we have problem solving, original innovative thinking, and artistic self-expression. So what they really want out of this question is for you to situate yourself in moments where you come up with something new. So problem solving could be, let's say you found something that was broken and you figured out how to fix that. You don't have to be in some kind of club to know how to do that. And the fact that you're enjoying it. Original innovative thinking, maybe you are in a classroom and somebody had is stuck with a certain problem, and you come up with something that no one has ever tried before, and that's something that you can definitely write about. Artistic self-expression, if you've always enjoyed like dancing or drawing or some of those that are traditional, you can definitely speak about how you've been inspired. What are the things that motivate you to express yourself? Those are the things that they really want to see in this question. Okay, so for question 3, what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you developed and demonstrated that talent over time? So you might think that this question is too similar to the previous question. In fact, for question 3, your focus should be on progress and achievement. So you want to be able to talk about how long you've been working on a talent or skill, where you've displayed this talent or skill, and what are the most meaningful moments. So if you've been, let's say your greatest skill is skateboarding. So let's say you started skateboarding when you were 5 years old. Now, even though that's not part of your high school experience, if you've been skateboarding since you were 5 years old, you really should say that you've been starting for that long, because then the admissions officers can see the dedication that you've had to this single talent. So if skateboarding is your greatest talent, then you want to look at how you've worked on it. So maybe you spend hours and hours at the skate park, or you take your board to the beach where it's cool to do some tricks. Maybe you've been injured, and even injury, even though that sounds like a really bad thing, that might be a progress point because you tried a certain trick. Maybe you joined a competition, or maybe you wanted to just show off at someone's birthday. Those are certain, like the meaningful moments where we can see that you've been progressing in this thing that really means a lot to you. Okay, so for question 4, describe how you have taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. So this question has 2 choices, and ideally you want to just pick the one because they're going to address different things. So an educational opportunity in this case is something that has helped prepare you for higher education. So 3 examples that we can think of are taking community college classes, maybe doing an internship, or being part of a summer program. So you want to be able to explain to the admissions officers how you have grown intellectually, how you have grown socially, what are the benefits of being in these programs, being in these environments that you would have not gotten if you just stayed at home, or if you just took the same classes you will take with other students. So these are opportunities that are rare. So given that they are rare, then they should help you get to a certain point in your growth, academically and socially, and even professionally, especially if you are working, you have the chance to do an internship. On the flip side of that, if you wanted to discuss an educational barrier, we really want to consider those obstacles that make it difficult to learn. So there will be huge impediments to your learning capacity, whether at school or at home. So some of the things that we think about as an educational barrier are lack of materials, or you have a limited access to technology, or you're going to school far away from home. You live in one city and then you have to go to school in another city. So having these educational barriers, you want to explain how have you navigated your education despite having these challenges. Okay, so question 5 reads, describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? So when we think of significant challenges here, what the UCs are really looking for is a challenge that greatly impacted you, your relationship with your friends, your relationships at school, and your relationship with your family. And then the other part of this is that how did this particular challenge impact your performance at school? So these examples that I'm giving you, these are obviously, you are not limited to these challenges or these examples. These are just the ones that definitely would have impacted your entire life. So a death in the family, experiences of homelessness, or a natural disaster. So while you're explaining these challenges where you've had to adjust to a great degree, you nonetheless, this is not a sob story. They don't want a sob story from you. So ideally, you want to talk about the proactive steps. So what did you do to manage and overcome this challenge? So for example, maybe you open the lines of communications with your teachers and counselors. So maybe in the past you didn't really email or didn't really talk to them. And so in this case, this is one thing that you did to make sure that you were still getting some kind of access and still trying to improve, despite the fact that you are going through a lot. Maybe you learn to prioritize your chores and schoolwork. Perhaps with what's happening, you've had to take on more responsibility at home and schoolwork wasn't as much of a focus. Or maybe whatever time you had, you could be doing your homework with whatever available free time there was at school, or maybe like in between going from home and then going from home to school and then school to home. Okay. Question 6 says, think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside or outside of the classroom. So when we think about this question, your goal is to not go on and on about defining what computer science is or English or what it is. That's not the point. The point is that you want to show that your dedication to expanding your knowledge and your passion for a certain area of interest. So let's take computer science as an example. So if you really enjoyed your experience learning about computer science, some experiences that you want to talk about, maybe these are the outside experiences from the classroom, or maybe you made your own robot, or you joined a computer science related club. You could have entered a coding competition. And even if none of those were open to you, inside your classroom experience, maybe you were so excited about a certain type of code and a certain type of project that in a group project, you're the one that took charge of the class project. So you're the one that said, okay, I really want to touch base with everybody. This is how I think the project will look, etc. Perhaps your preferred interest is English. So some people would say, oh, there's really nothing I can say about English other than just showing up to class. But even showing up to class, there are still things that will help generate further interest in that subject. So for example, maybe there was an author that you really enjoyed in class and you read all the books by that single author. Or maybe you were curious and you're adventurous about what you were learning, and so you decided to write poetry for the school's literary magazine. Another possibility is outside of the classroom, maybe your school has a mock trial team and you decided to join mock trial. And part of the reason why you joined mock trial was because you really enjoyed the debates that you were having in your English class. And so being in mock trial is a new way of using language and a new way of interacting with other people and trying to see many sides of a certain story. Going to question 7. Question 7 reads, what have you done to make your school or community a better place? So typically in this particular question, this is where a lot of students who've had a lot of volunteering experience, this is a great question to choose. And volunteering encompasses many types of experiences. So whether you've had experience tutoring children, you've spent time with the elderly, or maybe you've really put in a lot of time in helping the environment by cleaning up parks and beaches. So while you talk about your experience in doing any of these activities, the key to this question is you have to think about the secondary part, which is the better place part. So how do you tell the admissions officers that what you're doing has helped the community become a better place? Okay? So what kinds of details can you include? So you want to think about what the community was like before. And then you can also think about what happened when you started contributing and after, and what kind of positive feedback you received. So let's say you were tutoring children. That was your, you really thought that investing your time in helping kids was a great way to help your community. So you can think about how maybe you had two kids who were struggling, and then after a while, those two kids, maybe they were both getting C's. One kid eventually gets a B, and then maybe another kid gets an A. And then both of them still continue to see you as a tutor. And later on, you would get perhaps feedback from parents who are really thankful that you were giving your time to their children. So that's a way to really make sure that what you're talking about is how you're dedicating your effort and time to making sure that the community is getting better, so that these children in their education, you're helping something that is so integral to people's lives. Education is getting better because you chose it to help it be better for them. So the final question is question 8. And question 8 says, beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you stand out as a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? So this question is a little bit, it seems really nebulous, because it's like, oh wow, what is this? Does this mean I get a chance to just repeat everything, how great I am for the first 3 questions? And honestly, that's not the point, okay? So number 8, you shouldn't repeat what was said in the previous 3 responses. Ideally, in this particular question, you have already given them 3 good and or great reasons to already think of you as a strong candidate. By the time you get to number 8, you kind of want to hit the level of exceptional, or when, you know, like kind of like a sales call, it's kind of like, oh wait, there's more. So this is like the there's more part about you, okay? So in considering how you want to approach number 8, you can at least think of 2 ways. So if you've had an experience that didn't fit the previous questions, you can talk about it here. Maybe you had a specific talent or some kind of experience, some kind of contribution that didn't exactly fit what they were looking for in the first 3, and so you want to do it here. Or the other thing thematically is you consider what matters to the University of California. And the 3 major things are the pursuit of knowledge, service, and diversity. So the pursuit of knowledge for the University of California is not just something that you keep to yourself. That is meant to be shared, and in fact, it's in service to the people of the state of California. And along with that, the service part is we want to make sure that how we are growing as people, we help other people in the state. And lastly, you can speak about diversity because the University of California honors many perspectives. We need many perspectives in order to progress. And so having those kinds of experiences, if you haven't touched upon them in the previous 3, you can certainly do so in this particular question. So when you're thinking about, as you're writing this and as you're starting to brainstorm, there's 4 tips that I want to give you for starters. So most important thing is that these are personal insight questions. They're personal. So we expect that you're going to use pronouns like I, me, and my. This is about you. So they want to be able to see you have statements to say, I did this, or this is how I felt. And my experience has been this way, and this is how it has affected me. So this is really critical that you have I statements. The second important tip is that you use contractions. So some of you are so used to your English teacher saying, oh, don't use contractions. You only have 350 words, so certain contractions are absolutely acceptable. So I will becomes I'll, do not becomes don't, and should have becomes should have. Using contractions anyway helps the flow of your statements, and they become more natural as they read it. The next tip is use a casual to a semi-formal voice. Now what that means is that using this type of voice makes what you're writing relatable to the admissions officers. You're not trying to use any kind of big words or try to use funky construction. This is how we speak. So we either speak in a casual to semi-formal way. you're not delivering a speech at all, which is sometimes formal. So here's a quote, here's an example from one of my former students, and this is part of, she was answering question 4, and so she said, thanks to the internet, typing in a keyword and clicking was the fastest way to school me in what factors I needed to take into account when considering how galaxies evolve. So as you can see, this is a much more technical statement because she was trying to explain her experience at Cosmos. But at the same time, it's not something that construction-wise is a very difficult sentence to understand. And my final tip is choose questions that help you shine. So there are 8 questions to choose from. And the reason why there are 8 questions to choose from is that the University of California really wants to be attuned to the many experiences that high school students have had in the last 4 years. So you really want to pick questions that you have the most details. So this is how you can really make your voice authentic and how you can be unique to the admissions officers. There's really no reason to pick a question where you struggle to answer. If you're struggling to answer, that's probably not the question for you. So really consider, you want to have as much of a spread in those 4 questions to give admissions officers your full profile, and that you try to avoid as much overlap as possible. So those are my 4 writing questions. And we're going to move into our Q&A session. So if you haven't yet submitted your question, please do so in the box. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kelly Chu, and she'll be managing our Q&A session.
Thank you, Margaret. Margaret, can you stop sharing the screen? Yeah. Okay. Since we didn't turn on the microphone, so if you have any question, can you just use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen and just type in your questions, and Margaret gonna answer the questions. While we give you some time to type in your question, I would like to briefly introduce our counseling program. How can I share the counseling program? Okay, PA College Prep offers test prep, SAT, ACT test prep, and our famous college counseling program. What we are unique about is that our counselor mostly are full-time, and then they only work a small number of students. For example, our counseling director, Chris Bono, he only takes 15 seniors, and then the rest of the counselor, they're taking 15 to 25 students. So you will be working with your counselor, from the very beginning of the college application, or some students start a younger age, like even like middle school or freshman, and you work with the counselor all the way until you apply to college. So your counselor have a very thorough understanding about you, and they can really know your personality and help you to choose the best fit college and the major, and also help you to write the best essay that are in depth and really represent your character. So this is a lot of parents like about our counseling program. And also, how do we help our students? Before the junior year, before you really start a college application process, our counselor will we have a student join in a middle school or join 9th grade, 10th grade, or junior. My suggestion is, of course, you need to give the counselor a more time to understand you. So my suggestion is you can start to join a counseling program in freshman year, because at that time you still probably don't know what major you are interested in, what kind of activity you should choose, and what kind of classes you should take. Because if you want to pursue medical school, you probably want to get involved more like medical related or science related activity, and also the classes. So it's better to have a counselor help you. Some students can kind of really late in junior year, and so we ask what kind of major are you interested? They have no idea, and then some students suddenly decide they want to pursue art, they want to pursue medicine, and then in their high school activities or their classes, they never really have any related activity or classes or very strong classes to support the major. So it's good to start early. And then the counselor meet with the student before the summer of senior year. So meet with the student once a month, or we can break down the 1 hour meeting to twice every other week. And then the counselor will make sure the student maintain the best GPA. If the GPA drop, and then we will suggest enrichment classes or tutoring, and to help the students to maintain the highest possible GPA. And then when do you need to start to prepare for standardized tests? Maybe in the summer before your junior year or summer before your sophomore year. It really depends on what classes you take. Some students are very advanced. They even can start in their freshman year. And then, of course, your extracurricular activity, which is more and more important because now college put more weight on the, what you do in addition to the grades and the test. But it doesn't, as I mentioned, doesn't mean that GPA and SAT are not important. They are still important. And I would say that's the foundation. If college is, admission officer only give you 8 minutes, if you have a really good GPA and very high test score, probably you will attract them to look at your application more closely. And definitely you will have a better chance to get in. For example, UCLA has more than 100,000 students apply UCLA every year, and more than half of them has very high GPA and very high test score. So how can you stand out? Of course, you need to have very outstanding extracurricular activity and your essay. And to find out your personal interest, and to really to focus on that, your interest, and to do it very well. So that is very important. So we also offer the assessment to help you to find out, understand more about yourself. And then monthly reflection exercise. But our meeting doesn't really limit to once a month. Whenever the students or parents have questions, we're always there for you. Okay, so now is the year before you, the senior year. So if you are incoming senior, this summer is crucial. What you do this summer can greatly impact on what colleges you will get accepted to. So the counselor will work with the student closely, weekly, and to decide what kind of colleges the student can apply. Usually we suggest your dream college, of course, no matter it is Harvard, Stanford, MIT, UC Berkeley, UCLA, we will definitely help you to apply. But at the same time, we also help students to choose the match college, which is you have more than 50% of chance to get in. And also you need to have some backup school to cover, to make sure you have schools. And every year, the college application is more and more competitive. So it's very important that don't just choose, oh, I only want to choose dream school. So you choose 12 schools, they're all top 1 to top 12. Then it's very, very risky. Okay, and then college application and personal statements assistance. This is what Margaret is sharing with you. A lot of students, they have good GPA, they're very strong students, but their college essays are not very outstanding. So if you cannot present the best of you, it's the counselor, admission counselor don't really see who you are because they don't know you. And most colleges, they don't call you, or a lot of colleges don't even offer interviews. So all you can present who you are is in your college essay. That's why it is very, very important. Okay, and then scholarship. It's now very expensive to go to college. So college scholarship would definitely help you, help your family to relieve the financial burden. And then we help students to prepare for interview, and yeah, we do mock interview and help you how to impress the interviewer. And then when you got accepted to like 10 colleges, 8 colleges, how do you choose? Our counselor will meet with parents and the students and analyze, for you and help you to make the best decision. Okay, so if you are seniors, it is very important to, you can schedule a free 30-minute counseling appointment with our counselors, and to find out how our counselor can help you. Another thing is, you saw in the very beginning in the video that we have a lot of high perfect score or high score SAT or ACT students. PA College Prep, this is the 21 year that we've been doing college prep and test prep. So we have really strong teacher. Many of our teachers, like Mr. Michael Lathrop, our English teacher, he's been teaching for 15 years. And Ben Chen, more than our math teacher, he's been teaching this the 21st years. So they really, really know the material very well. And then they really can help students, to, in a short time, to understand the test and to improve very well. And also we even offer a fine-tune class that actually fine-tune session. If you already have good score, if you already have a 1500 on SAT or 33 on ACT, and you want to get a higher score, then our most experienced teacher can help you in this fine-tune class. Usually we is a small group of 3 or 4 students, and then our teacher just work on the students' weaknesses. So you don't have to waste your time in sitting in a classroom to wait for the teachers to explain the question you already knew the answer. So if you don't have a good test score, I highly recommend this summer, especially if you are senior, you should prepare for the SAT. This is our SAT program. This summer, all the classes are online, so it's not limited to only the students in Orange County. We have students who are even out of state sign up, and even in Asia sign up our SAT class this year. So I think this is also a good opportunity. And more schedule and information, you're welcome to call our office to find out. And remember, there are still many opportunities to take the SAT, and the ACT. Look at this schedule, okay? In August, September, October, November, December, all the seniors, you can still take this test. The one in the red font, it still can take these tests. But I highly recommend you to sign up now. Many students told me that they couldn't even log in because so many people are trying to log in. My trick is try to do it at midnight. Then not many students are signing up, then you can start to choose. But I helped a student sign up the other day, and I found in August test, a lot of test sites in the neighborhood already are full. So try to sign up as soon as possible and sign up more than once. Because don't say, oh, I'll take the August test and I'll see how I do, and then maybe if it doesn't work well, then I'll sign up the next. You probably cannot find a good test site. So why don't you just sign up at least 2 or 3? And then if you already receive a good score, then you can just ask for a refund, or just, not a lot of money. You probably lose the registration fee, but it's worth it to do it. And then same with the ACT, there are also a few tests that you can take. And we have a special promotion that we will only offer to this seminar. If you sign up this seminar, you can get this promotion. This is probably the best promotion ever. You get free counseling session, or you get the discount for if you sign up the program. Okay, so yeah, that's about our program, and then we have the best, the most experienced and dedicated counselor and the best teachers. So that's why we help a lot of students getting to their dream colleges. Okay, so now I would like to also introduce our next week's webinar. Now every Friday at 1 p.m., every Saturday at 1 p.m., we will have our series of webinar. Next week, we're talking about study strategies for busy students. Now students are getting more and more busier, so it's really important how to prioritize your schedule and also use your time wisely. Okay, now we can go back to Margaret to answer all the questions. Hi, Margaret. How can I decide which prompts to write?
Yes, so I'm going to have, besides myself, the other counselors that are available to answer questions include Mr. Chris Bono, he is our director, and Mr. Lathrop is also on hand. So they'll jump in for some of these questions as we answer them. So how do we pick the question to answer? So one way that you can pick is, so there are 8, and it can seem like really overwhelming. So what you can do is you can think about, you can look at each question. And so this is from a writing perspective, okay? So you can look at each question and you can just do bullet points first. And so remember that these questions are about your growth from the last 3 years. So as you're doing your bullet points, you kind of want to consider, what are some of the things that I put in a lot more time and effort over the last 3 years? So if you haven't really put in a lot of time and effort into, into expanding something from a class, then that's not really something that you need to consider. So that's one way that you could do it. There was a question that asked, oh, can I write more than 4 essays and then pick and choose afterwards? That's certainly another way that you can do it. So when you think about answering these questions, everybody has different ways of writing. So if you're more of your brainstorming is, let me list everything that I've ever done in high school, that's a great way to do it. So you could have kind of like your list of activities and list of your achievements and see how you can translate that into those questions. You can certainly do that. Another way that you can do it is, as this person's asking, is writing more than 4 essays and then picking and choosing up afterwards. You can do that. If you wanted, you could certainly do 8, see how far you get, and then just eliminate. So if you were having a hard time hitting the 350, that's an indication of probably you wouldn't want to do that question. Chris or Michael, did you guys have anything to add?
I think you covered it.
Oh, okay. Great. So we've answered that. Somebody asked, is it okay to write about one's weakness, such as depression, illness, bad habits, etc.? Will colleges think this one is not a strong candidate? So in light of, let's say you were experiencing, you did have bouts of depression, you did have a major illness, and there were certain bad habits. Now you still have to frame that within a particular question. So if your depression was a significant challenge, you cannot bog them down with that particular struggle. It's still important to talk about the extent to which you were struggling, but how did you try to manage that situation? And the reason for trying to think about or show them how you manage the situation is, did you do something proactive? Did you try to be creative? Did you try to build relationships? So maybe it was super difficult to really try and do anything, but in the midst of you struggling with depression, you reached out to your teacher and you reached out to your counselor, and yes, your grades were suffering, but you know what? Because you talked to your physics teacher gave you a break. And what could have been an F became like a C, and things like that are what they really care about, okay? So being able to talk about weaknesses is fine, so long as something has happened for you to transform that weakness into something that shows your growth. Another question asks, I assume any applicants would talk about the impacts of COVID-19. Should I talk about it too or not talk about it? All of us are impacted by COVID-19, certainly.
again, for the way that you want to talk about the impact of COVID-19 is what have you done since and because of the epidemic. So there are many ways in which COVID-19 can appear as a theme in your answers, but you cannot use all 4 questions to talk about COVID-19. So let's say the most appropriate place for you to talk about the impact of COVID-19 is in the leadership question. So maybe in your family, you're the one who was like, I'm the person, I can drive, and my parents, or I might live with my grandparents, and they are a vulnerable population. So I decided that I'm the one who's going to do all the grocery shopping. You know, you didn't want to do delivery, or even if you did want to do delivery, you figured out how to do that, and you're the one who's preparing all the meals. So that's one example of how you could use the leadership question to talk about COVID-19. Again, if you want to talk about COVID-19, you can have it as a response to one of the questions, but it's not necessarily like all of the questions. The one caveat with that too is the COVID-19, our pandemic has only been in the last few months. So what you can do is link that particular experience as something that is this unusual environment that did manifest, but then the way that you've handled the changes included the way that you've been growing through the last few years. There's a question about sharing some samples for reference. We would love to do that. If you wanted to come in and do a free 30-minute counseling with us, we can show you how we've helped our students achieve their successful essays for the UCs and for other schools. So it's more useful when you come in and do the counseling, 30-minute counseling with us, and then we can break down how each of those essays actually work. So that's certainly related to, there's a question on how counselors help students brainstorm what to write in the essays. So for us, it's really important to have an open line of communication between the student and the counselor. So for as much as we'll have seniors that we're just getting to know now, we do want our seniors to be open. And the most important thing, here's another tip for all of these essays, is that you have to show vulnerability. You do have to show that you are not a perfect student. That's why it's okay to talk about your struggle, but you have to talk about your development. So in session, the way that we try to brainstorm with our students is to get to know our students, to emphasize that you pretty much have to help us help you. So if you can share with us as many details as possible about certain experiences, how you thought, how you felt, you know, what was going on, that's how we brainstorm. The other thing too is we try to look at our group of students that are coming in, and also we look at our students historically to see how will your choice of essay, depending on where you want to go, what your choice of major is, and you know what your grades and what your test scores are. We really look at it holistically so that we can say, you know what, you may want to choose this other question instead, because we already have, I can anticipate all of these other students choosing this question, or this is how this question is going to be answered. So we help the student choose not just the question, but also how to present themselves in a unique way and an authentic way that's different from how we anticipate other students would answer a question like that. There's a
Mark,
yes.
you skipped one question. Do you recommend writing more than 4 of the essays and then picking and choosing afterwards?
I recommend doing that for students who are comfortable writing and just drafting. So if that's your style where you just kind of want to do the 4, if that's certainly what you can do. If you could do 5 or you could do 6. So it's again, the reason why I'm saying that that's okay is that each student has a different writing process. So for students who really need a lot of time to think, then they can do a lot of listing, for example. And then for those where drafting is really easy, then you can just do those drafts, and then you will certainly have to, again, if you have somebody like us, we can definitely evaluate like which responses would be more suitable and more useful and helpful for your profile. Okay, a question asks, does certain subjects you talk about in the essay affect what UC school you get into? No. So the beauty now of the UCs is that your personal insight questions are independent from the major choices at the schools. So when you get your application, there's going to be a section where you choose the schools and you choose your majors. And except for Berkeley, everybody has a first and second choice. So it really, this is not like private schools where you have to justify why you're picking a certain major because you're trying to apply to that major. That's really not the point. The reason why the UCs want to ask you why there's a certain subject that inspires you is that, did you actually do something about it? They really want students who are proactive. They want students who want to pursue a passion, want to pursue an interest, and really want to get creative. So that's not really going to impact necessarily the major that you choose. It is quite common for engineering students to talk about computer science because that's just something that they really enjoy. And not everybody has engineering in their high school anyway. So for certain students, it is quite likely that certain things, certain classes and certain experiences will reflect the major choice, but that's not, it's not going to affect, you're not justifying your major. And also you don't want to say that, oh, I'm going to talk about history because I think I'm going to get into history at UCLA because it's like an easy major. No, you just want to write about yourself authentically because that's what they really want to try and get the student to try to get to know them as individually as possible. A question asks, how will financial aid applying impact the college application results? So your financial aid status is independent from your admission status. So we do advise that as you apply to college, when the FAFSA comes out, which is in October, we do advise that you submit your FAFSA at the same in the fall, so that when you get an offer in the spring, your offer of admission and your financial package offer come at the same time, so that you can make a really sound decision. So in the way that it impacts your college application results, they don't really look at your income and say, oh, we're not going to admit you because you make this income. That is quite independent. So that's why the FAFSA is highly recommended if you are seeking aid. That's not a requirement to gain admission. The thing to make sure to see if you're going to get admitted is to turn in an application. And so that's why your essays are still going to be much more important than whether or not you are of a certain income bracket. Somebody asked, can I use an essay I wrote in my English class? It depends what essay you wrote in your English class. Some English classes, they really like to, some junior year teachers and some senior year teachers will use the UC personal insight questions as an exercise. They already want to assign you to do it, and then they're going to have to look it over. So it depends if you're already, they're using this as an assignment, and maybe you can use it. But if you're going to talk about, if you want to use like Pride and Prejudice, you certainly cannot do that. If you want to talk about, the life of Frederick Douglass, no, you cannot. But if they have given you an opportunity to start out writing these essays in class, yes. But even after maybe you've gotten an A in your AP English class or your English class, I can tell you that that does not equate you getting into the university, okay? Because AP English teachers, honors English teachers in general have a very different set of eyes compared to admissions officers. So what I would advise you to do, and it's not, it's not comfortable at all, it's not ideal, you may have to write separate versions, one to get you the A in class, and one is so that you are highly attractive to admissions officers. So like I said, two structural factors that will differentiate your response in your English class and your response to admissions officers is, are you using contractions and are you using a casual or semi-formal voice? English teachers tend to prefer no contractions and a formal voice because most of you are doing literary analysis papers, which is not what this is about. So the kind of writing you're doing for the personal insight questions are more like memoir and personal statement. This is about you. This is about the I person. And that doesn't really happen in English class. You don't have a lot of practice in that. So you have to honor the expectations of your English teacher, but you have to pivot and make sure that you're presenting yourself as close to how you speak and how you present yourself to your friends and people you care about, and to an interview in the admissions for the UC personal insight questions. If question asks, if a student has average GPA and test score, will a good college essay be a game changer and help a student get in prestigious schools? It's still, so the average GPA and test score. So when we talk about GPAs and test scores, so your GPA is the story of the last 4 years, okay? So you've had an opportunity for the last 4 years to do the thing that you were supposed to do the 4 years. Your one main job, which is to be a student. And you had 4 years of opportunities to make sure that you achieve the highest GPA possible. Your test scores should complement that GPA. So if you're an A student, you should have an A test score. Yet, they're a little bit more forgiving with test scores because as many of you have seen, tests are going to be canceled. Personal reasons like you get sick and you are not able to perform that well, those are quite forgivable because you can take 3 tests or 4 or 5, but you have 4 years worth of classes. And if those 4 years you didn't take advantage of them, then that's really what they can see. Now, what is a good college essay a game changer, like monumentally? It can only help you, but they will have to weigh that with all of the other parts of your application, because the question arises, how is it that this is your college essay is kind of like your Hail Mary? That shouldn't be your last resort. The college essay should, in a way, function as a celebration of everything that you've done in the last 4 years, that you are proud of the person that you have become, and this is how you're going to explain it to these admissions officers. It's not going to be this pity party. It's not going to be an apology. It's not going to be like, oh, guess what? I'm actually like a really hardworking, interesting person. So your college essays are not about you showing that you are intelligent. They're about you showing that you are interesting. And so given that you're showing them that you're interesting, that's the icing on your cupcake. So when they look at the cupcake itself, the cupcake is already super tasty, right? Because you got good grades, you got good test scores, that foundation is solid. So even if they didn't see that icing on the cake, they're gonna be like, cool, I kind of wanna know who this kid is, right? And so when they see that this person is interesting, then it's like, you are a great contender. So the essay can only help you. So yes, if this is your Hail Mary, this is the last part, this is all you've got, then you really got to put your best foot forward. You have to put your best foot forward. If you're spending your parents $70, you might as well put your best foot forward. So that's what you really want to do in terms of how you're using the essay. Whether or not it's going to change their mind about the last 3.5 years and your test scores, that's really a totally different story. It's quite rare. And in this day and age, with the way students are, who are very savvy about the college application process, your essay is not the thing that will get you into Harvard, if that's really what you want. Question asks, is it okay to have one activity be my answer for my 4 chosen questions? The hard answer is no. So part of the reason is that it's a hard no is that because they're giving you 4 opportunities to answer, you really have to find a way to show them different parts of you. So we don't want you to see yourself as limited. So that's why it's not restricted to formal activities. It's not just about your clubs. It's not about like stuff out, if you had an organization outside of school. You really have to look at the kinds of relationships you've built in the last 4 years. So it's only to your advantage because the UCs really want to get to know you. So ideally, you want all those 4 questions to be about different parts of you. You may not hit it out of the park for one, but you may hit it out of the park for the other three. So there's a lot of ways for them to understand you. That's why they said, if you can think of about an academic subject, for example, and what you've done inside or outside the classroom, you still have an opportunity to talk about what you did inside the classroom. It doesn't have to be the same activity. Chris or Michael, do you have anything to add with that?
Nope, you said it perfectly. Spread it around as much as possible. Yep.
Yes. Good.
Yep, same here.
Okay. Do you recommend choosing a less competitive major to get into school, then switch to your wanted major afterwards? So in this case, the situation completely depends. We absolutely want you to apply to the major that you are most suited to and the major that you absolutely love, because you've spent the last 3.5 years preparing for this particular interest. So we would really want you to throw your hat into the ring because you are prepared for that. Now, a less competitive major as a strategy, if you're going to do that. So for the UCs, it's becoming more and more difficult to be able to make it into certain majors. Now, if you want to be an engineer, unfortunately, you really have to declare being an engineer, because if you wanted to change 2 years later, that seat is not really going to be open. So for engineering, for a lot of engineering majors, that is the risk that you will have to take. But that is the reality of the situation. So you have to understand that, yeah, sure, you can change, but the likelihood of getting into engineering may get more difficult if you don't tell them that you want to be in engineering now. Similarly, with certain business majors, they want the student to declare to be a business major right now, because they have to assess how many seats they're going to need in future years. So first, our advice is to, if possible, you want to apply for the major that you are most suited to and that you've prepared yourself the most. Secondly is, you have to consider, are they actually going to let you in? Because it is going to be even more competitive when you become a sophomore or a junior, and they'll have restrictions on certain majors. Chris or Michael, do you have something about that?
I'll add something, which is, I've encountered this a few times before, and I've always said the same thing. If you are not tied to a particular major, that may be a slightly more reasonable approach. In other words, if you're saying, I really want to go to this school, but you aren't tied to a particular major, then it might not be unreasonable to choose something that's on the edges of your expertise or areas. But if you really are tied to a major, this is an iffy proposition, because most schools of any good quality, and I'll just use Berkeley since you mentioned Berkeley, or you mentioned business. Berkeley accepts freshmen normally as pre-business. And then they ask them to take certain classes, and those classes are designed essentially to remove students that are not capable or not serious. So even if you were to, say, get into Berkeley, planning to, switch to business, it isn't necessarily true that going in another major is going to make that either easier or in some cases even possible. Certainly different schools take different approaches, but the description I just gave you of a requirement class is fairly common for majors that are oversubscribed. If they think that there are more people that want to take this major than they really have room for, as Margaret said, what they're going to do is basically make it very difficult to get in, usually in a couple of ways. So just be very careful about, I'm going to get in over here, and then simply switch over. They may make it difficult, or they may simply say, as Margaret pointed out, that you're not allowed to. They'll say you needed to come in as this major.
Okay, another question that we have is, would colleges prefer an increasing GPA or a high average GPA? So I'm going to try to answer this as I understand it. So colleges like students who improve over time. So they understand that taking 5 AP classes in one semester is pretty brutal. So maybe you only got like a B or C your first semester at, for one of those classes or something. And then the following semester, you improve that. So you went from a C to a B, or a B to an A- or something. So they still want to be able to see that. So an increasing GPA is definitely, it's definitely showing that you are putting in a lot of effort. So anytime that you show improvement over time, that is a plus. A high average GPA, I'm not like, we would still want you to show your best effort possible. So if a high average GPA means not having any AP classes, but you still have a high GPA, like a 4.0, that's still really great. So AP classes are just a bonus. So if you have a 4.0 with just regular classes, you have a 4.0 unweighted GPA. That's fantastic, because when someone else has so many AP classes and those are removed, and then we see their unweighted classes and they didn't do as well, then it's still, there's still a doubt in admissions officers' minds, because they want to see a student that is consistent. So you don't want to just do well in AP classes because you're going to get extra points. You must do well in all of your classes, because you're the one who chose these classes. You're the one who had an input in these classes. Therefore, even if they are not weighted classes, you should still show effort in the weighted classes as much as you do for the weighted classes. Chris or Michael, do you have anything with the increasing GPA versus high average GPA?
I think what's probably more important to that is an overall look at the rigor of the coursework, not necessarily the numbers. The numbers are a secondary consideration. If a student is always willing to rise to a challenge and push what they are capable of by choosing challenging classes, they're already in a better position than a student who is floating by with straight A's in non-weighted or not as challenging classes. So obviously, if you're taking the weighted classes, the challenging classes, you still want to do well in them and get as high a grade as possible. But where the real value of your GPA is coming in is how it relates to the level of classes you've taken. So if it starts with a low GPA and rises over time, that's awesome, as long as it's not a result of you taking easier classes along the way. If you have a high GPA all the way through, that's awesome too, especially if you're taking those opportunities to challenge yourself. So I guess that would be my take on that one.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think those are all of the questions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have answered all the questions. On the screen, you will see the PA College Prep's contact information. Since now the campus is closed, so we actually release our Assistant Director Lydia's cell phone here, 949-838-5867. And also the email, you can send an email to info@pacollegeprep.com. And if you are interested to schedule a private meeting with our counselor, you can also contact our counseling assistant director, Laura. I also released her cell phone here for you. It's 949-562-6227. 949-562-6227. We will be more than happy to provide free counseling appointment with you to answer all your questions. I know sometimes, college essay or application is a lot of information is very personal, so we will be more than happy to help you. Okay, I want to give our audience a big applause for asking so many good questions and for staying all the way till the end of today's webinar. So I hope to see you soon next week, Saturday, 1 o'clock for our next webinar to talk about how to study strategies for the busy student. Okay, hope I can see you soon. Thank you, Margaret. And thank you, Chris, and thank you, Michael. And thank you, all the audience. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.